So on that note, Kristin, I'd love to jump into your session. We've run slightly over on the questions, but that's fine. We've got time for that. So yeah, I'd love to jump into your session. I'm really excited, and I think as we all are, to hear what you've got to say today about that sort of $1 million question on no-follow links. I mean, I think any of us can relate to questions that we've had from clients, from colleagues on the value of no-follow. So yeah, without further ado, I'd love you to please take it away, and yeah, I'm very excited to see what you've got to share today.
Excellent. So I'd like to share my screen, but I'm actually on 2 different Zoom calls because my audio wasn't working on one, so I'm called in. I'm not sure if you can just hand control over to the other one.
Of course I can, yeah, no problem at all. There we go, it's just adding you on now. There we go.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, so why you shouldn't sleep on no-follow links. Yeah, this can definitely be like a very contentious topic and certainly well debated. And like everything with Google, it's impossible to know the exact truth. But this deck will essentially take us through what Fractl tells our clients and how we think about no-follow links and their value across link building and PR campaigns. So what does Fractl know about links? Well, probably like many of the other agencies here, our focus is on data-driven, newsworthy, emotional content. So as I mentioned in a previous comment, we're looking to follow that success model and create stuff that is data-driven, but also truly emotionally compelling. And then we pair that with very high-touch outreach. So one-to-one, every email is customized, pitching only high-authority publishers. And the combination of those 2 things, when done well, is scalable high-authority link building. So why do we do this? Well, because link building still matters a lot. As Google's algorithms have changed, it's still a very strong signal. And there's been consistent research that's sort of proven this out, including these interesting statistical analysis tests that have shown significant correlation between links generated, especially high authority links generated, and organic ranking improvements. So need proof? Obviously that's smart. Like I said, any agency worth its salt should have a number of different case studies and examples of growth that they created through their work. So just a few Fractl examples. This is link building that isn't exclusive to just do follow links. So this includes all types of link building. So since 2012, Fractl's done roughly 2,500 client campaigns, 10 million organic social shares, 100,000 plus publisher mentions, and then most importantly, 25,000 plus root linking domains. So it's not total links, it's just the domains themselves. So we have a lot of experience with building links, a lot of experience with pitching content, a lot of experience with dealing with client questions around this piece that you got placed. It's a no follow. Does that provide any value to us still? So we have built a lot of links, but how many of them are no follow? The big question, right? The real answer is probably somewhere between 10 and 20% of the links built with this type of link building are no follow. And that's for a lot of reasons. Some publishers have blanket no follow policies. Others do it with certain writers and not other writers. It's unavoidable with this type of PR work. So there are really 10 important reasons we tell our clients not to use do follow, no follow as the single most important metric in understanding the value of the links that are being generated for their site. And what I'm really arguing here is that the no follow argument really needs a different calculation of value, one that's required really to understand, that's that's different depending on whether or not the story, the pitch domain, or both have high syndication potential. And this is the key part, syndication potential. So I'm going to go into a little bit more of what that is, but it's important to remember that the link that you get, especially the initial link that you get, what you really should be caring most about is the total visibility of that link and not whether it's a do follow or no follow link. So the first part is no follows are part of a natural link profile, and content marketing generates natural link profiles. So the no follows that you garner as part of your outreach strategy on the content that you produce, it's actually oftentimes a good thing that you're generating no follow links alongside your do follow links, in that you're developing a natural looking link profile, which can help protect you later on if you're doing, especially if you're doing other sorts of link building that are maybe on the fine line between white and gray hat. So link exchanges and perhaps buying links or other things like that. Though Fractl does not buy links and we don't recommend it. Just saying, if you do have a situation where you're doing some things that are potentially more risky, hedging with a natural looking link profile can be a really important part. And two, so the manipulation of page rank by SEOs via no follow link sculpting has eroded the value of this. So over the last 10 years or so, I mean, as Google put in place no follow, do follow links, SEOs became wise to it and realized they could sculpt page rank by manipulating their own internal and external do follow and no follow links. And so it's this always evolving arms race between SEOs and search engines. And I think over time, it's hard to deny that the value of the no follow, do follow distinction has been eroded by SEOs through some of these tactical practices. And this is, I think this is a relatively uncontroversial opinion, although Google's never going to come out and say exactly how no follow has changed since its inception. It seems logical to assume that it probably does pass some value, though it's certainly unproven. So three, as I mentioned earlier, many publishers have blanket no follow policies, and some of these are the largest publishers. So, you know, if you were just going to take a very hardline approach and say, I'm not looking for any no follow links from my agency, don't pitch anybody that has blanket no follow policies. In my opinion, that would be a very silly position to take, especially because many of those publications that have those policies are some of the top tier ones that have the largest potential visibility, the largest potential for syndication. So next, so as search engine algorithms are becoming more and more black box, so with BERT and some of these other generative AI technologies and AI language models, what's happening is Google is actually becoming more opaque to Google as to exactly how these models are determining values. And so I think no follow really is, if anything, providing different signals to these models that are even more incomprehensible than they maybe once were. And so I think it's even more illogical to assume the role of no follow is as cut and dry and black and white as it was at its inception. So if our team were to place a dollar value on no follow links, we would try and think about it within the context of their potential as a ranking signal in conjunction with their necessity as a hedge in terms of generating a natural link profile. So it's important to think about these things holistically and together and not just based on a single-sided metric. And then some of the content marketing side, right? So content marketing success happens at the nexus of content and maximum initial visibility. So if you're not going for that maximum initial visibility, then you're not reaching the highest potential, right? So the ultimate goal is to leverage the network effects of traditional and social media, and that requires getting the maximum initial visibility that you can. And for that, there's no difference between no follow and do follow links. So if you get a New York Times link, say it's a no follow, the visibility of that link, the potential syndication of that link, those dynamics are not dependent on if it's a do follow or no follow link. When another journalist is reading a story written by the New York Times author who did the piece on your content, they're not checking to see if it's in a no follow link and then using that as a metric to decide whether or not they should write the story. So the reason that's, I think the final point really here is that syndication that can happen with a large pickup of a no follow link is potentially orders of magnitude more of a difference maker than the value of that link based on whether it's a do follow or no follow link. And also the initial pickup link status ultimately has no bearing on the total volume of authority garnered, the total number of links garnered, the total syndications that happen, the total volume of value provided. So I'm going to go a little bit into what syndication networks look like and what the power of syndication really is that we've seen at Fractl. And so this is actually, it's a really neat visualization. This was a visualization done by the GDELT organization, which is an organization that aggregates news stories and news publications. And this is a network graph. So the dots themselves represent nodes. So each node is a publication. And the lines or edges between them represent in context links. So you had CNN, and then in a CNN story, you had a link to, say, Mashable. That would represent one of these lines, one of these edges between these networks. And so you basically what was done here is a giant node and edge list was built up of all of the articles and then all their in-context links to other domain articles. And then a network visualization was built from that using a tool called Gephi. And what you're seeing here are these different clusters, like these different colored clusters are all clusters of news networks. And they're grouped together by how frequently they had links between them. So it gives you a visual understanding of the news network sites and how they're connected to each other. But even more than that, how they potentially syndicate to each other. So you'll see there are some nodes that kind of have a special standing within certain places. So you'll see like the light blues. I don't know if you can see my mouse on here or not, but in the light blue section on the very bottom, there's a little node above it with lots of like black lines surrounding it. These intermediary nodes between two big clusters. These can be really important sites for syndication because they act as like the bridge between sometimes different language sites, sometimes different niches or topic areas, sometimes just different like conglomerates of news publishers. But you can learn a lot from these in this in particular because it's a representation of all major news sites. But you can also build these interesting network visualizations around your own content and the way that it syndicates and learn quite a bit about the dynamics of different news sites and how they syndicate to each other through that. So here's an example of a Fractl campaign syndication, and it's animated over time. And that the central hub of orange there around it, the very middle one is you see it when this GIF restarts. That central orange node is the client campaign. And then everything filling in around it are all of the campaigns that link to it. So all of the orange ones pointing to that one in the middle, those are all syndications around that particular page, the client's page. And then everything that starts popping up around those are syndications to other stories that were pointing at the main page. So you see this sort of like evolution of the content kind of traversing the internet and expanding and growing in syndication. And the trouble is you don't ever really necessarily know how this is going to work. And your initial pickup might have been a no follow, right? You don't necessarily know. And all of the syndication behavior and dynamics that happen after that fact, the no follow question really has no bearing on it. So you don't want to use that as a metric to say, okay, I do want to go after this publisher or I don't want to go after this publisher, because that publisher may have an incredible chance at syndication just based on its positioning within the other sites, its relationships with other sites, the journalists themselves, and who they influence. So the dynamics are really, really complex, and boiling it down to a single metric, do follow, no follow, is, I think, an illogical simplification. So this was another one. This is a project that we did recently at Fractl. And this shows the dynamics a little bit more slowly, but again, you can see specific sites that sort of act as bridges or mediators or spreaders. And what's actually really interesting about putting it in a graph visualization form is you can run graph algorithms on it. So you can actually run like the PageRank algorithm on this and understand. Actually, let me show you that. Let me share a different screen and I'll show you actually like the raw data of this stuff. So this is the interactive version of that animation I was just showing you. And on the bottom here is the time window. So this was the client's landing page here in the middle here. And then as I do the slider over time, you see these are different pickups, right? Like these are different publications that are starting to write about this content. And then you see here, for instance, this Celeblicious, right? Celeblicious was some kind of connector node to this story over here at Global News CA. And you continue to see these sorts of dynamics as you run through this. So I can just keep going. So you see some of these new communities popping up over here. So there's that orange one just came in, loudwire.com, right? So I think this is maybe a week or two after we began pitching. So I'm not sure if this was a pitch or a pickup on its own, but this Loudwire pickup itself had its own syndications. And then you can continue to watch it and see, okay, it had another one over here that came up inside hook.com. And so there's quite a bit you can learn about the way that syndication networks behave using visualizations of your own campaigns or visualizations of other news stories and the way that those news stories syndicate through similar effects. So all of that really boils down to my main point, which was that success really is predicated not on do follow, no follow, but is predicated on the maximum visibility and syndication potential of your targets that you're pitching and those publications potential. And that was basically it.
Fantastic. No, thank you very much, Kristin. That was really, really great, really engaging, and really fascinating to see the interactive you just walked us through there. I think there's some really great points, and nice to see a sort of maybe a slightly different take to the straight cut. Yes, no follow are valuable, or no they aren't. And I mean, I think it's what are some of the sort of use cases that you guys are using at Fractl that for then? I mean, how are you sort of working that into how you're sort of rolling out activity? How are you, what's the sort of everyday use case you're using that for?
So it's really about gaining a deeper understanding of which sites are potentially most valuable to pitch, which ones are going to have the highest likelihood of syndication, right? So like by understanding the dynamics between these different sites and examining them and researching them, you can get a feel for which sites are going to, in general, have a much better chance of widespread syndication, because there are all of these hidden relationships that we don't know about, right? Like brands and their subsidiaries, all of the content sharing negotiations that happen between different sites, local news and national news syndication networks that just have always pre-existed. So there are all of these dynamics that if you know about them, you can leverage them by finding the right people who sit in those intermediary spaces between different publications or behave as thought leaders or influencers, where the content that they the content that they write about is read by lots of other people who also write. So finding those key people, those key publications, using data and using visualization techniques like network graph visualization can be really effective.
Amazing. No, I couldn't agree more. It was really, really great to see. So I mean, on that note, Kristin, thank you very much for joining us. Really great to have you. And I know it's probably early for you. I don't know whereabouts in the States are you based?
In Colorado right now, so it's about 8:30. Not too bad.
About 8:30, yeah. So no, well, thank you very much for joining us so early in the day. We really appreciate it. And to everybody else, thank you very much for attending the event. We've had a really, really great day, some really, really great sessions. We have recorded the sessions with permission of the speakers. We will be releasing recordings of those in about a week and a half's time. So please keep an eye out for those. We will be asking speakers to share their slides if they're happy for us to do so. We'll be sending out an email over the next few days with those as well. So with that, thank you very much again. Kristin, thank you very much for your time. And thank you everybody else for attending. There's been some really great sessions. We've had some really, really great feedback. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. And yeah, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day.